My name's Ashley.
And this is Ryan.
And this is Ruining Our Childhood. Yeah, we did it.
We did it good.
So what do we talk about, Ryan?
Well, first thing, I guess we should talk about ourselves real quick. Obviously, we already gave our names, but we are a married couple, so we'll probably razz each other a little bit on here, and you probably would be alarmed if you just heard two people making fun of each other like we do. We've been together, almost married 9 years, and going on 13 years together.
I feel like you had to think about that for a second.
I did not. But what we're going to do on this podcast is we're going to go back and rewatch movies together.
Yes.
But we kind of set ourselves some parameters that the movie has to be at least 10 years old, because we figured there wasn't an iPhone 11 years ago, or there might have been. But it was 10 years ago. So when we watch something back, we're going to notice, like, hey, technology was different. Stuff like that. If we're watching stuff from the last 3 years, it's going to hold up for the most part.
You would hope so.
You would hope so.
I think the iPhone started in 2007, so.
Okay. So.
I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
That sounds right, because I think the iPhone 10 came out in 2017.
Oh, damn.
So,
yeah.
So, okay. So. The movies have to have come out prior to 2009.
Correct.
As of this first episode.
Yes.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go back, watch a movie. We're going to give our opinions prior to watching it, whether or not we think the movie's going to hold up.
Yes.
Then we're going to watch the movie.
Right.
Then we're going to come back and say whether or not we thought it held up.
That is correct.
Okay.
That's what we decided.
That's what we decided. So why don't you tell us about our first movie?
Oh, thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
Thanks for letting me talk.
You're welcome.
So today's movie and our first ever episode is going to be American Pie, a 1999 classic. The synopsis is 4 teenage boys enter a pact to lose their virginity by prom night. That's a really good tagline. Yeah. And it starred Jason Biggs.
Biggs? Jason Biggs? All right.
Chris Klein.
Correct.
Thomas Ian Nichols. Ooh,
for sure.
Sorry about that. And who is the fourth person? Eddie K. Thomas. But also Sean William Scott and a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
Like
they get
Eugene
credit.
Levy,
but yeah, Eugene
Allison
Levy,
Hannigan,
Shannon Elizabeth,
Jennifer Coolidge.
Oh boy.
Oh my god.
Take a shot, folks. Tara Reid.
Yes.
And Natasha Lyonne.
Yes, Natasha Lyonne.
Oh, and also, person probably hasn't been seen since 1999, Mina Savari.
I don't know. Anyway.
I'm just going to go ahead and bring the drinking game out. Every time we fumble through a word, you guys take a drink.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Get drunk and think about movies from your childhood and teens.
Yeah. One of my wrestling podcasts, every time the guy fumbles a line, he always says, take a shot. I'm bringing that to ours. So we stole it from you. So,
well, you should credit it.
It would be the Major Wrestling Figure podcast with Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. So.
Nerd.
Yes, I am.
So tell us a little bit about 1999.
Take a shot!
Set the scene, Ryan.
So fun facts about 1999. So that would be 20 years ago. Generally, I would say the entire world had a panic about the Y2K computer bug that they thought was going to just ruin us.
Sure.
That never happened. Top song, Smooth by Santana and Rob Thomas. You could not go anywhere without hearing that song.
That's true. And it feels like it hasn't been that long that you're saying that was 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
God.
They... Pretty much the most famous person probably in the world would be Bill Gates. Notable literature was the third Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, came out. Popular names were Emily, Hannah, Alexis, and then Jacob, Michael, and Matthew.
Alexis?
Yeah, we know an Alexis. The big movies of the year would be Star Wars Episode 1, Toy Story 2, The Sixth Sense, Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, and The Matrix.
Okay, all winners.
All winners. And most popular TV shows, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Oh, God.
That was a phenomenon, if there ever was one. ER.
Okay.
Friends.
Yes.
Frasier,
Sure.
and well, they credit 60 Minutes, but I guess the next non news show would be The Practice.
Okay.
So then we had some other big pop songs of the time would be Baby One More Time by Britney Spears, No Scrubs by TLC,
My jam.
Cher, somehow still relevant, Believe was her big hit. We had hit songs from Will Smith, Christina Aguilera, Enrique Iglesias, Take a Shot, and also Mariah Carey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, great year for movies and music because No Scrubs to this day. Still an anthem.
Yeah.
Still a banger, as the kids say. I said that.
No, they say a bop.
They say both, I think.
Words I don't use in my life, that's what they use.
I'm trying desperately to hold on to my youth. So, so let's go to our first segment, which is our first impression of American Pie. Our earliest impressions of when it first came out in 1999. You were...
I would have been 14 when the movie came out. I'd be getting ready to enter my freshman year of high school.
Aw, just baby Ryan.
Just a baby Ryan.
Go ahead and tell me what your
first impression was I remember wanting to see the movie because, I saw the previews on television. It looked funny. I can honestly say I don't think I recognized any of the actors except for Thomas Ian Nichols. Is that his name? Did I make up his name? I think I made up his name.
Let me double check it.
Because
there's two that have... Well, there's actually three that have a three name. There's Sean William Scott.
Mm-hmm. Eddie K.
Thomas Ian Nichols. You're right.
Thomas Ian Nichols. From Rookie of the Year. So I did recognize him.
Why did I want to say Little Big League?
He was not in Little Big League.
That's the other kid.
That would be the other baseball movie from our childhood. Okay. Well, one of them, because then there was obviously Sandlot. But so I recognized him. I didn't recognize anyone else. My brother had gone and seen the movie. Came home. Did not give it... he said it was good, but not anything great. It wasn't till the following year that I actually saw the movie when he got it when he worked at a movie store, which is clearly not a thing anymore. So he brought it home. I watched it, and I was hooked. I watched that movie at least once a week the entire summer. I thought it was hilarious. So that was my first impression. What was yours?
Mine was that I remember kids talking about it at school. It did come out in the summer, I believe July 1999. Mm-hmm. And I just remember it being a big summer movie. If I can remember correctly, I don't even know if that's true. But and then when it came out on a DVD or VHS, I can't remember which one we rented. It was probably DVD. Mm-hmm. My dad liked to keep up on the tech. But me and my dad rented it. My brother and my mom were both at work, and it was the most awkward thing I've ever dealt with in my childhood. It's still vividly seared in my memory, watching the weirdest scene of a guy having sex with a pie with my dad. So, yeah, so that's my memory. I feel like we saw it, didn't we say the last time we saw it was probably like 8 years ago or 7 years ago?
When the most recent one came out, we rewatched it.
Right, and this movie has spanned, obviously, quite a few sequels with the original cast, as well as some B-movie spin-offs, just using the name like it's National Lampoon, which is okay, I guess. But I've never seen any of them.
No.
Maybe I've seen the Bandcamp one. I think it had the one girl from... She's in Midnight Texas, but I can't remember her name.
Oh. No, I never watched it.
She was in Vampire Diaries. She played, like, Lexi.
Oh,
Ariel Cabell.
Cabell? Sure.
Yes, Ariel Cabell. I couldn't think of her name. I get her confused with the girl from Friday Night Lights either.
I was going to say I confused her with the one that was on the show Breaking In with Christian Slater.
Oh, she does kind of look, but she has the other girl has brown hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
We're going on a tangent.
Yeah, anyway, so let's, that was it. I mean, now we're going to go watch the movie.
Well, actually, why don't we say whether or not we think the movie's going to hold up?
Oh, yeah, that's what we were going to do.
Yeah. I personally think it's going to hold up. I think there's still the cliche of kids making a pact that they're going to lose their virginity together, so I think that's something that's not going to be irrelevant. I don't feel like watching somebody fuck a pie is going to be irrelevant. So I think the jokes are still going to be funny. I'm sure some of them are going to be dated, but I mean, there is an appearance by Blink 182, who was a huge band at the time, not so much anymore. But I think it's going to hold up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the fact that there's certain tropes that are always going to be funny, like teenagers wanting to have sex all the time. Almost to the point where it's cliche now, but at that time that was like it wasn't even a big deal, but I think there was a couple years where they didn't focus on that, where they went away from like, let's just focus on sex crazed children. Like they had a bunch of movies like that in the 80s.
Oh yeah.
And then I think like early 90s, I don't really remember any that were like very significant.
Yeah.
So I feel like American Pie was one of the first ones that did resurge that trope, but I don't think it will hold up. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I think just the jokes that I can remember, or just some of the scenes that are just a little icky. I don't know, but I guess we'll see. I think there will be a lot of sexist jokes that will definitely not hold up in 2019. But like I said, we're going to go watch it. We're going to come back and talk about it. And if you want to pause and go watch the movie to refresh yourself as well,
we'll be right back.
Yeah.
All right.
And we're back. We watched the movie, so now we're going to talk about it. We're going to take off our childhood goggles. We have new impressions. We're going to put our adult contact lenses in that are basically bifocals because we're old as crap now. And we're going to start with our first category. Go ahead, Ryan.
So our first category, we're going to go ahead and fire up our dial-up modem because we're going to talk about a little 90s technology. Did you notice any technology in the movie that really dated the overall film?
I did see some. I was a little disappointed. I thought there'd be a lot more. And at one point I was like, where are their cell phones? And then I'm like, cell phones were a thing, but they weren't like completely accessible to the general population as much, especially like teenagers. So they did not have any, which was a surprise. The thing I noticed was obviously the webcam scene, which we'll get into later. But also towards the beginning when Jason Biggs, he was setting up an E-Date website profile, and the web browser was so old.
It looked like an Angel Fire webpage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it looked terrible.
And then the other thing I noticed was, and several characters said it. I know Stifler said it, and Michelle said it, Allison Hannigan's character. They called it the internet the net. And that, I don't think people say that anymore. How about you?
The one thing that I thought was interesting was the technology that they were using to stream her, but they also were saying, we're going to broadcast her across the internet, which I was like, we would say stream, like the wordage, just the verbiage that they're using at the time.
It's streaming,
like, it's a little old. And then one of the other things I just thought was funny was he was watching, at the very beginning, he was watching like scrambled porn.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, I don't know that kids do that nowadays. I don't know that those channels exist.
I'm sure those channels exist, but I don't think they're scrambled anymore.
So like, what kind of dates?
I remember not so much watching scrambled porn, but I remember trying to watch like scrambled HBO.
Yeah.
Or like Showtime.
We would, me and my brothers would watch scrambled WWF pay-per-views.
Nice.
Yeah, because it was interesting. It was kind of very similar, like in the movie. You could hear the audio.
Yeah.
So you could kind of figure out what was going on because my parents were way too cheap.
Oh,
and they were not buying us the pay-per-views to watch. So that was just I think that kind of just wraps it up. Like you said, there was no cell phones. Ironically, like nobody had a beeper. It just I think that was actually kind of helps the movie hold up, is there's really not a lot of dated technology.
I agree. There was nothing that was too distracting. But real quick, I did want to talk about some of the background music for some of the scenes. like was this mellow guitar that was super cheesy. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh yeah.
Like especially the scene that where like Chris Klein, I believe it's when he's like running to go to the choir
like
contest.
across the campus.
Yeah, and it's just like this really dramatic, not really dramatic, but just like something you'd hear in a Lifetime movie, and I was like, that kind of dated it because I don't think people really use like just generic music like that as much anymore.
No, definitely not.
But especially not as loud. Like something they'd put like a hit song in there, or at least an actual song.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, I mean, actually, I think that was it for me. So, what about you?
Just the webcam and the pixelization of the whole webcam streaming, which that was, I mean, but that was the time.
That was realistic.
It was realistic, but I think that helps kind of date it a little bit. Not that we've perfected that technology by any means, but yeah.
Like even Skype still sucks.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, well, let's go on to the next category then, which we're calling, kids would call it a throwback. We call it the prime of our teens. So this category is about dated things other than technology, fashion choices, dated reference, offensive jokes. What do you think, Ryan? What was your thoughts?
The fashion choices, it was very late 90s. One of the first things that popped into my head, take a shot, was the bucket hats that people were wearing. But yes. it was the times.
It was, but it's hard to not notice those things. And I think, honestly, bucket hats are actually making a comeback. I've seen them in like spreads and stuff, and a lot of 90s clothes are coming back. So maybe there's some kids watching this, movie and going, oh, that looks good. But I also think the fashion started changing into like 2000s wear, whereas I think the stuff that's popular right now is like more mid 90s, like crop tops and whatnot.
And then the only other ones that I really had as far as the fashion was, it seemed like everybody was wearing really baggy jeans.
Yes.
Especially the guys. And then, like, it seemed like Jason Biggs could only wear an oversized polo shirt.
The thing I noticed was Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah.
Hawaiian shirts galore. And I remember a time where that was like a go-to thing, but looking back at it now, I was like, man, why does everybody look like they're retired in Florida right now? Like, going to Disney World, just, like...
They're hitting the Tommy Bahama outlet.
Yeah. The only difference was, like, that they were more brightly colored, but I was just like, especially in the beginning party scene, like, Stifler had one on, Jason Biggs' character had it on, Jim. I couldn't remember it. Yeah. Every single main character had a Hawaiian shirt on. What about any dated references or offensive jokes?
I don't think I really had any dated references because I don't think they like name dropped any like. There's a cameo by Blink 182, but I'm like they're still relevant now. It wasn't like they were like talking about Harvey Danger or a band that kind of fizzled around.
They
that
did
time.
Play a Harvey Danger.
They did
song,
play it. I think that was a requirement to be a movie made in 1999. Yeah. So that song has to be on it. So I didn't really come up with any references where I was like, oh, that's dated.
Definitely. I think for the offensiveness, like coming from being a female, they said chicks a lot. And it's not like the most offensive thing to say, but it's just like you couldn't say girls or women or like anything else. Like no. It was literally every single time chicks, and it wasn't just Stifler, which you'd expect that out of. It was every single character. So I was just like, okay, we get it. They're called chicks. Like, you're so cool. But other than that, and just like when Oz, I couldn't remember his name. Oz kept saying he wanted to work with a sensitive angle. And it's just, I mean, they're all in a way trying to trick their way into having sex in a way, but his was kind of the most offensive because he was just like literally trying to change himself to get laid, whereas everybody else was working some sort of different angle.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, I was actually really surprised how little offensive jokes there were. I think there was one gay joke.
Yes.
And it was made by Stifler, which again,
you gotta just expect.
Yeah, he's supposed to be the worst of the worst.
I literally, I wrote down in my notes, Steve Stifler literally is the hashtag #MeToo movement's worst nightmare. Because he's very offensive in it. He just because his buddy's singing, he's like, "You're gay."
I wouldn't say so much worst nightmare as like how a lot of women perceive like the bro. Like when you think of bro culture, that's
Yeah.
who you think of.
Yeah.
Is somebody like the guy who slapped a girl's ass in the first like 5 minutes of the movie, and you're like, cool, I guess it's your house, so you can do that?
Yeah,
I don't know. And then like almost tried to pressure a girl into having sex, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later because I have a whole note section about that, but geez. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't the worst. There wasn't as many dated things. There was a lot of stuff that you just kind of deal with because it's 1999.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and move on to our next category, which we titled, Well, Hello There.
Ooh.
So this category is basically just, we're going to talk about some random cameos that were in the movie. We've seen this movie multiple times. It was people maybe we had forgotten were in it, or at the time maybe they just weren't famous enough that we didn't recognize them.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, if you've ever gone back and watched an old movie, sometimes you're just like, holy crap, Brad Pitt's in this? Like, or, you know, somebody equally famous like Bradley Cooper's like has 2 lines in this movie and he's just like a waiter. Like, it's kind of funny to see that. So we made that category because we knew that would probably happen. And this movie didn't disappoint. Go ahead.
The first one that I noticed was right when at the very first party, doorbell rings, Stifler goes over, opens the door, and it's the band geeks. And he tries to just blow them off, tells them to look down the street. It was kind of funny the way he did it. But I think right away I notice, obviously, Allison Hannigan, because she's easily the most famous person in that. But I'm looking to the left and I'm going, that girl looks familiar. And she doesn't even have a line in the movie, is Christina Milian.
Yeah.
Which I was like...
I didn't notice her. I was kind of surprised you noticed her.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's a random person, because never, ever had noticed her prior to watching it tonight.
No.
So. Did you notice anybody?
The first person I noticed was John Cho, who actually still has a career. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm not that mean. I don't know. Christina Milian does the thing for voice, right?
She was... years ago.
We don't watch
it. We're not. She might still. Who knows?
But John Cho, which is a very good actor. I like him in a lot of things, and he was one of the MILF bros that literally I looked at IMDb. He's listed as John/MILF number 2, MILF bro number 2, or MILF guy.
MILF guy.
So, and he just has like a couple lines where he's talking about how hot Stifler's mom is.
Yeah.
And then he like makes out with her picture with some other guy, which I want to say they come back for the second movie.
I actually did look it up, and John Cho is in every one of the movies.
Okay, so it's a staple. But I'm like, how did I forget that?
Yeah.
And then he was like in the choir in the background singing, which I was just like, I never noticed that. But other than that, you noticed Casey Affleck?
Yeah. I mean, which obviously he's much famouser now than what he is.
Ocean's 11 come out by then?
No, that came out late 2001.
I can't remember what his first movie was.
I want to say maybe 200 Cigarettes?
Oh, yeah.
That
was a decent movie.
But maybe, I'm sure he maybe had some other small roles.
Yeah, but he played Kevin's brother in American Pie, and he just basically tells him where that, I guess...
Sex Bible
would be. Yeah.
Where he learns how to give the tongue tornado.
Oh, God. Well, you know.
Yeah.
Other than that, there was a couple random people that I recognized and I had to look up. They're not like super famous, but there was the fiance from The Hangover who looked super young.
Yeah.
She looked like she was 16.
I was going to say she probably might have actually been 16.
And then there was another girl that looked really familiar, and she was from Can't Hardly Wait. But other than that, I mean, there was a bunch of extras that looked like they were 40, like most movies and TV shows.
The one guy in the lacrosse team with the horribly receding hairline, and I'm like, that man is 40 years old.
Yeah, if you watch the movie, if you pause it, he's like standing right next to Oz when Stifler, when their coach is talking to him, right before Oz decides to like walk off and join
Heather.
Heather at the choir competition, and he does look like he's 40 years old.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, I think when they're making movies, they're just like, let's just stick random people.
Yeah.
And nobody will notice them because they'll be looking at the two stars of the scene.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's go on to the next category, which is called Is It Even Good? And this is where we just decipher like whether the plot of the movie is believable. Is it even written well? Like, was our presumptions of the movie when we were kids that we really liked about it, or do they fit within our adult standards now?
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead, and what was your opinion?
I felt the plot's believable, and I thought that I even wrote in here, I'm like, it's a tale as old as time. It's high school boys trying to have sex.
Yeah.
They pick a date, which I think earlier we said it was trying to get laid before prom, and it was actually, they say specifically before graduation, but they know prom is their last big chance.
Because it's the cliche place.
Yeah. It's the end of the school year, you know, you're gonna, but, so I thought in that sense, I thought it was believable, and I thought it would still hold up today.
Okay. I do think, like, a lot of parts of the movie was believable and relatable, especially like Jim and his dad's relationship, like that awkwardness of catching your kid doing something sexual or for the first time, and he's trying to be the cool dad, and Eugene Levy is just like really good about his comedic timing on everything.
Perfect in that role.
And so I thought that was really relatable. The other thing I wanted to discuss was like casting choices as far as the movie goes. Like, Shannon Elizabeth looked like she was 30, and we looked it up and she was 26, so not that far off. But I swear, I told this to Ryan while we were watching. I'm like, she looks like she has bags under her eyes. Like, I'm 32. Like, she looked as old as I did. Like, so it's just kind of weird to have somebody that old. And then I'm not quite sure how old Jason Biggs was. I'm sure he was just a little bit younger, but he has a baby face. Yeah. And he looked like a believable 17-year-old, at least when I was a kid, too.
I felt, honestly, I think he's the only one that might be believable. I thought, like, Chris Klein and Thomas Ian Nicholas, like, I felt they all looked, like, I didn't go to high school with anybody that looked that old. Yeah. Stifler even, like, they all looked...
Stifler looked really old. I'm pretty sure he was, like, late 20s.
Yeah, whereas, and even, like, on the female side, it was, like, the girl from The Hangover, like, she's a believable, like, she was probably actually 16.
Yeah, she was young looking.
Allison Hannigan was a believable, you know, teenager. But, like, Tara Reid looked like she was already maybe partying a little too hard. And
yeah. Like, but I mentioned, like, she, in this movie, she still looks, like, full-faced, like, young, and it's before, like, she started messing around with, you know.
Plastic surgery.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you put down for, like, the funniest line or moment in the movie?
I genuinely thoroughly enjoyed every scene that Eugene Levy was in. He tries to explain sex and masturbation to Jim, but he acts like he was just waiting outside of his room, like, just kind of like, oh, I just happen to be out here, and he has a bag of porno magazines with them. And the way he's trying to explain the different types of magazines, I laughed at everything he did.
Yeah, that stuff was still hilarious, and it probably has a lot to do with the fact that it was Eugene Levy, and he's just really good at comedy. Yeah. My favorite moment was, I had a hard time because I wanted to put a couple things. One of the things was some of the stuff that Jim's dad said, but I laughed out loud when Michelle said, "Say my name, bitch," because I remember, like, laughing so loud when I was, like, 13 watching that movie, because it was just, because she's supposed to be so innocent, and then all of a sudden she's, like, you know, this dominant person, and it was just a really hilarious moment. What about the cringiest moment or line?
I have so many written down. Honestly, like, the very beginning of the movie, Tara Reid and Kevin are driving to school, and she gives him a hug. And I even wrote down, I was like, William Shatner thought it was bad acting. Like, it looked like they had never met each other. And I'm like going, are these two... And even at the end of the movie, I question whether or not it was believable that they were dating. Like,
Yeah.
they had just had sex with each other. And it's like...
They didn't have good chemistry.
No.
But I think during the sex scene, that was the point. Was
Yeah.
the fact that it wasn't the best sex in the world, which is really realistic, which aids to the movie's credibility. I had a lot too. But honestly, I think the scene with the webcam was the cringiest thing.
Oh.
Looking back now as an adult and going, you're doing this without the girl's consent. And I know maybe that sounds a little like,
Yeah.
politically correct and
They would be
feministy
arrested.
of me, but that's seriously like the creepiest thing. And then the fact that she just goes along with it.
Yeah.
And I had written that that scene was written like it was a bad fever dream, like that it was just a dream of in Jim's head,
Mm-hmm.
like it didn't really happen, or it's like that joke Reddit section where it was like people are telling the most unbelievable story, and then at the end they're like, and then everybody got up and started clapping, like that didn't really happen,
Yeah.
but it did in this movie.
No, that was disturbing, where I remember looking at you and going, they're breaking the law.
Yeah.
Like, if a kid did that today, they would be arrested.
Yeah. And
But, it's hilarious.
like, I don't know how old Shannon Elizabeth's character is supposed to be. I know a majority of the characters are supposed to be at least 18 because they're all graduating high school, but I'm like, that could be like child pornography. Like,
I didn't go there in my head, but also, good point.
I watch a lot of Special Victims Unit, so...
And then just a couple other, it's cringeworthy trying to watch Oz and Heather. Like, they can't act.
I think it's more one-sided, but we can get to that when we talk about our final thoughts.
It was bad. And then just one of my, it was lines that I kind of just went, are you kidding me? Was when Heather compared Oz's singing to Frank Sinatra.
Yes. So I'm going to transition that into our final thoughts section, which...
Okay.
So for each movie, we're going to do...
award season.
Yeah, we're gonna award one character a grand award of the Thomas J. Hanks Award for exceptional acting. And what is the other one named?
The other one is going to be the valedictorian, I can't speak, take a shot, of the Nicolas Cage Online School of Bad Acting.
That is a mouthful.
So, literally, we're going to go from one spectrum, Tom Hanks level, great acting, and then, holy crap, Nick Cage.
And don't get me wrong, we agree that Nicolas Cage has had good movies.
Yes.
I just feel like the last, good 10, 15 years, he's been really phoning it in, and he's just not good at things sometimes, like screaming or yelling or showing emotion. So,
go watch Wicker Man.
So, my valedictorian of the Nicolas Cage Online School of Bad Acting is actually Chris Klein.
Yeah.
Is Oz. That's who I chose. Did you choose him too?
I had written down a couple options. He was definitely one of them. And then the other one was, for me, Shannon Elizabeth.
Okay. Well, let me...
Go ahead and explain.
So, obviously his singing in the movie, which is just horrible. And I just always remember that video. I don't know if it was ever serious, of his audition tape for Mamma Mia, and his just really off key. And then I think he sang in what was that movie with Ryan Reynolds?
I'm not sure.
The one with oh my god, I can't think of it. When he's fat and then he's in love with
Just Friends.
I couldn't think of it.
Oh yeah, he might sing in that.
He does. He has like a guitar and he sing. And I don't know if he actually physically sings or if that's the whole comedy bit. But yeah, and then the fact that people were like, he's a good singer, and then the other guy, the blonde-haired guy that was gonna take over for him, he actually sang decent, and they're like, oh, thank God, Oz is here. Get away, guy that can actually carry a tune. And then just his lack of emotion, when he was leaving the game for the choir competition, he just was trying to show emotion, he's sad that he's quitting the game, but then he's happy, and it was just the cheesiest thing in the world. So yeah, that was my...
I even wrote down when they try to sing together during this is supposed to be the big concert winning performance, and it's terrible. I'm like, you both can't sing.
But at the same time, you could see it as realistic, because watching an actual high school choir performance. I was in choir in high school, and I'm like, they weren't perfect. It wasn't like Glee every episode,
Oh,
but
no.
but yeah, no, hers was okay singing. His was just, I don't know why they decided that should be a thing with his character.
Yeah.
So you said yours was Shannon Elizabeth?
I wrote down Shannon Elizabeth. She breaks out the best stereotypical Eastern European
Vague
accent
Eastern
that she
European.
can do, which when she's having her big moment in the movie, which is her taking her clothes off, she looks over when he quote unquote blows it, and she was like, she says it in perfect American, Jim? Like, she doesn't even go, Jim?
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh, you're so... There's a reason we probably haven't seen her in a long time in the movies. She's probably done a lot of B movies.
A couple of really bad casting choices.
Yeah.
So my Thomas J. Hanks Award for exceptional acting was Natasha Lyonne. Was that expected?
She steals every scene.
Jessica, because just her delivery on everything, and she's just this voice of reason for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And she is just almost too good to be in the movie, or she should have had a bigger part, I thought, because she just, she stole every scene she was in. Like, and to be fair, most of her scenes were with Tara Reid, so...
Not hard to do.
Yeah, not hard to do, but at the same time, she was just the voice of reason, and she was just so cool, and I don't know, I just love Natasha Lyonne. I can't even talk. Who was yours?
The other one that I had come up with was Eugene Levy.
Yes, that was my second choice.
He was perfectly cast as the dad. I did read that they had considered Bill Murray.
That's crazy.
Which I honestly am glad they didn't, because it's like... Bill Murray's amazing, and I think he would have did really good, but I think Eugene Levy brought something, of himself to that role. So
yeah, definitely.
He definitely, again, stole every scene he was in. So
I honestly don't think that Bill Murray could play a nerdy dad. And I think that's why the awkwardness works so well between Jim and his dad, is because he's like this nerdy dad that's trying to be hip, whereas Bill Murray he's too cool.
Yeah.
Like he's never not played a cool character, I think.
No.
I mean, prove me wrong, I'm sure.
That's true. I'm sure someone will. Throw it in the comments.
So now we've come to our final decision on whether we're going to ask two questions here. Does it hold up to your adult standards personally? Like, what's your personal opinion? And then the second question is, does it hold up to 2019 standards of just this world we live in, where we're slightly politically correct, and I say slightly because I'm being nice, but you know what I mean. So what was your final decision?
I felt it held up as an adult and not a 14-year-old. I'm now 34 going back watching this movie. I felt it still was funny. I mean, some of the jokes, like, I remember thinking Stifler was hilarious as a kid.
Same.
And now I'm like, he's so dumb, but he's still kind of funny. He
can deliver sarcasm well, and when it's not too bad, but then, like, it was just stuff I couldn't forgive him for, like some of the overly sexist stuff, but he still delivered, like, when you said the lines to the band members, like, he's just playing the typical mean guy who doesn't like the jocks, he's a cool guy, whatever, or doesn't like the band geeks. And Sean William Scott's, like, delivery is really good.
Yeah.
So it's just, his character's supposed to be bad, though. I think it's supposed to show, like, these guys aren't that bad because look at this guy over here.
Yeah.
So anything, like, horrible that the four main guys do, like, well, it's not as bad as Stifler.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's why they created that character.
No.
But I agree.
Okay.
I was on the fence, but I do agree, because I think there's a lot of redeeming things in this movie, like Jim and Jim's dad's relationship. And then also, like, I realized there was, like, this connection to every bad thing that one of the characters did. There was some sort of karma effect. So, like, Stifler smacked that girl's butt, and he was a jerk to the band geeks. Then he drank Kevin's jizz. And then I put Jim. He was, like, kind of mean to Michelle, and there's something else he did. I did not write it down.
Well, he did set up a webcam.
He set up the webcam. Thank you. Why? What? I'm trying to black that out that happened. And then he, premature ejaculates. Twice. And then I put even Shermanator lied that he had sex with that girl.
And then he peed his pants.
Yeah, in front of the whole school. So, like, I think that's redeeming because it's showing that these guys might do bad things, but they're not going to fully get away with it.
No.
And so I think if you look at it in that light, like, this movie is, still holds up. A lot of the jokes are still funny. There's just some moments that I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Why? And especially that webcam scene.
Ugh.
That, honestly, it almost tipped me over to, no, this movie is crap.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of it isn't bad and isn't too offensive. So it still holds up.
I honestly looked at it like, I think they could have took this script and hire, whoever the hot young actor is of the time and go film this movie again. Using the same soundtrack. I thought it had a good soundtrack for the time. Like, a lot of the songs aren't dated or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at it like, I was like, I think it does hold up. I thought they could remake that movie, literally script changing very minimal in there, and it would still be a funny, successful film.
I agree. So that is it for us today. If you happen to like this podcast, please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button and maybe review it.
Tell a friend.
Ooh, and also tell a friend.
Yeah. And if you don't like it, tell an enemy.
But, yeah, if you want.
There you go.
But we'll see you next time for ruining our childhood. Good job.
Yay.